everybody, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to my February favorites recap-y kind of goodness. I have a bunch of things I want to talk about, so I'm going to try to zip through these because I want to get this video up today. So I'm actually filming this on Thursday, March 7th, and it would be great if it was on YouTube on Thursday, March 7th. That's kind of the goal. So we will see how it goes. I'm just going to adjust my camera. There we go. Sorry for the wobbles. Alright, so I'm gonna dive right in. In case you guys don't already know, or if I haven't commented on your video, I love favorites videos. So if you have one that you put up every month, definitely let me know because I love to watch those from other people here in our little corner of YouTube. So yeah, I like to cover a bunch of different categories. So I'm gonna start with food because food is fun. So this month, my favorites outside of the, first things. I discovered, I think this is technically March, but whatever, we're going to throw it in there. I discovered a secret Starbucks drink, kind of, and then I made my own secret Starbucks drink, but I love cinnamon dolce lattes at Starbucks, and I like to make those at home too with my espresso machine. I also really like the new cinnamon shortbread latte here. It's in the States too. Love that one. And then when I was in the States, I went to a Starbucks and I was whining because they were out of snickerdoodles, and I was really bummed because I love snickerdoodles and there's no snickerdoodles in Canada. Like, I don't know why. It's just a sugar cookie with cinnamon on it, but for some reason it's just not a thing that's taken off up here. So I was really bummed that they were out of snickerdoodles at the Starbucks. And then the barista was like, hey, do you want a snickerdoodle? Because I'd ordered a cinnamon dolce latte. She's like, well, do you want a snickerdoodle latte? We just add white chocolate syrup to it. And I was like, yes, please. And that was actually really good. Although I didn't make it as sweet as they were going to make it. They were going to make it like, I think, 4 pumps of, I don't know how much, 3 pumps of each, or I don't know. It was going to be ridiculous. So I had them tone it down a little bit. And I like sweet drinks, but I think it was like 4 or 5 of each. And I was like, no, that's way too much. So I think she did 3 pumps of white mocha and 3 pumps of cinnamon dolce, and it was so good. So then when I got back to Canada, I was like, hey, what if I mix the cinnamon shortbread latte, which has that brown buttery sauce, and cinnamon dolce latte? So I did that in my mobile ordering app, and it was so good, so it's my new favorite. But really, the one thing that I need to talk about for February for food is the gigantic chocolate heart that Peggy got me from Purdy's Chocolates. Look how weird it just turned me. It turned me blue because it's so red. It's throwing the color off on my camera. So this thing was gigantic. And to give you an idea of scope, there was a lot of chocolate. So Peggy being the man-child, Peggy and I all ate a lot of chocolate in February. But it was amazing. And then partway through the month, I think we, but partway through the month. So each one of these squares, I think, holds like 9 individual chocolates. So, I mean, you can do the math. There was a lot. And then not right after, but like as this started to get a little bit depleted, Peggy took me back to Purdy's to hand pick out a few of the chocolates from their collection that were not in here. And I discovered, because she was just crazy, this was like her very spontaneous, see, I blew again! That's cracking me up, actually. It was this very spontaneous pre-Valentine's Day, I'm going to do this just because I can kind of thing. And it was so sweet and amazing. And she kept saying, like, you know, everybody deserves one of these in their life, so this is yours. And I was like, aw. It was very impulsive and sweet and awesome. And then when she took me back to pick out a few, like, specific chocolates, I discovered a raspberry balsamic, like, chocolate. It's so good. It's like my new favorite chocolate of all time. Raspberry balsamic. It rocked my world. And that is saying something because I am not typically a fruit and chocolate kind of person. Okay, so I've been talking about chocolate for 4 minutes and coffee. So I better get a move on. Okay, other things. So that was the food. Let's talk about books. So I actually finished a couple of books this month. I finished 3, but 2 were good ones. So I'm going to share those. I may talk about the other one at some point. Maybe a depthier update. We'll see. So I finished 2 poetry books in February, and I really focused on finishing these in February because In Bulk and Bridget is associated with poetry and writing, and it just made me feel more connected to the season. So I really enjoyed finishing both of these. This one, the She book by Tanya Marcool, she is the person or personality behind the Thug Unicorn account. I think it's called Thug Unicorn on Facebook. and she posts a lot of personally empowering kind of stuff. And based on her writing, I have discovered that she is from a very similar background to me, and so her poetry really resonates. It's very much about sort of taking power back, and it looks like I marked a few. Like I've dog-eared this. I have like, I loved it cover to cover, but there was a few that just like knocked me on my butt. Let's see, one of these. I'm going to read this one to you guys, because, you know, why not? We'll see how we go for time. I went back to the newborn baby who felt afraid. I went back to the child who wanted to feel safe. I went back to the teenager who longed to be heard. I went back to the young woman who craved love. I went back to the adult who prayed for direction. I went back to the human being who blamed herself for being abandoned, rejected, and left behind. And I saw how unworthy she thought she was, of safety and affection, how unwanted she felt, how alone she seemed, how she suffered in silence for so long. I looked into tear-filled eyes and gathered the newborn, the child, the teenager, the adult, and the human being that I am and had been into my arms, and with a love I knew was mine, I carried us all to the other side of pain. Like, I'm going to get emotional just like reading it out loud. It's really good. And the whole thing is very acknowledging and validating for those of us who have come from difficult upbringings, and if you've come from, you know, toxic relationships or toxic childhood or any of that kind of stuff, it's just very self-empowering, self-loving, and it's wonderful. Like, I was gonna say it's perfect, but that's not quite the right word because there's no such thing, but it was so good. And in the same vein, Uncaged Wallflower by Jenna Cecilia, that's the author's name there. I think these might be self-published, but I'm not sure. By the way, these both have that really cool, like, velvety almost feeling covers. I bought the extended edition. I think it was only a couple dollars extra on Amazon when I picked this up. And I'm so glad I did, because again, I loved every single one. And you can see I've also dog marked the crap out of this one as well. This one is also very self-loving, very self-worth based. Let me grab a shortish one. There was a really good one, I feel like, near the end that just like, I was like, yes! This is probably it. Yep, this is it. It's called Love Me Big. I am not a 4 a.m. phone call when no one else is awake. I am a 5 p.m. knock at the door after you sat in rush hour traffic just to tell me you love me. I was like, yes, that was so good. So this one's got, they both have kind of shorts for the most part. But the extended edition of the Uncaged Wallflower is out of this world. And I never got the original, so I don't know like how much extra is in here, but it was only like, it was a very small price difference. These are both very affordable books on Amazon. Highly, highly, highly recommend if you need some uplifting, like, poetry in your life. And I'm not like the kind of person that has like 25 poetry books. Like, these are the only two I currently have. So, and I love them both so much, which means there might be more poetry in my future, but we'll see. Maybe next in bulk I'll treat myself to a new one. So that was books. What else do I have here? Oh, so self-care. So I'm looking at my notes. So I'm like, what was my favorite stuff in February? So my favorite self-care thing. So some of you know, let me back up. As some of you know, the dad that raised me, my dad that raised me, passed away about 2 weeks ago, I think, at the time I'm filming this. And right after that happened, a whole bunch of like synchronous stuff happened. Some of you guys were on that live. I'll be talking about that more in a minute. But the self-care thing that I felt really, really called to do, I'm probably telling you this all out of order, but was I really wanted to try a float tank. These are, can be sensory deprivation experiences where you're in total darkness, you're floating, you're like back floating in water that is so heavily salted with Epsom salt that it increases the density of the water, and anybody floats. Like, you can't not float. So there's no effort required. You don't have to consciously relax like you would to like back float in a pool or in the ocean. We have doggies. One moment. I think they're good. Okay. You can close the lid of these tanks. You can turn the light off. You can be in utter darkness, and you put earplugs in, so it can be very sensory deprivation based experience, which I know is terrifying for some people. If you are claustrophobic, do not recommend. That said, a lot of float spas do now have like big open type tanks so that they are not enclosed. But I did go into an enclosed pod, and it was a really, really wonderful experience. I thought I was going to go in and like cry and be really emotional and all this stuff, but I just kind of was present with myself for like the 90, almost 90 minutes that I was in there. And it was really, really great. It was very nourishing. It was time for just me. Like there was literally no demands on my time. It felt very connecting. There were times when I had the light inside the pod on. There were times that I had the light off. I filmed some bits. I meant to put together a vlog. I didn't get a chance to before Newt's, the Northwest Tarot Symposium that I just got back from. So I may still put that together for you guys and put it either here or on my other channel and share it. But it was just a really, really nourishing experience, and that was definitely my favorite self-care activity for the month. And it was a very conscious self-care activity. So it felt really good that way. So magic. So this is what I meant. I kind of said stuff out of order. There's a few things. First of all, I did a couple magical crafty things this month that I really, really enjoyed doing. The first thing was I don't know what order these went up on my channel, but the first thing was a prosperity oil. So this has a bunch of really, really good stuff in it. It's in a roller ball. It's got some jade in there. It's got some bay leaf, some peppermint oil. And I just put this in one of these like kind of cheap little roller balls, nothing fancy. And I have a video of this process that I'll put up on my channel. But I really love having these little magical oil roller balls because I can just like when I'm thinking about doing prosperity magic, I'll just grab this off my shelf or off my altar and I'll do a little clockwise circle to draw to me to draw money, prosperity, abundance, etc. to me. I'll just do a clockwise circle with intention, and then I'll just sort of rub my palms together to sort of build the energy and just take a couple big breaths in with my hands so you get that aromatherapy. And just combined, it feels like a very sensory and tactile, quickie little magical boost. So I've been really, really enjoying that. And I also made one at Inbulk, and this is kind of more of a solar plexus-y, sunshine in a bottle, Bridget oil. It's meant to help with drive and inspiration and sort of that inner fire. And again, more solar plexus-y. So a lot of yellows in here. I've got sunstone. I have lemon. The lemon is the strongest smell. The lemon essential oil. It smells so good. So same thing. If I want to draw some of this to me, I've been using this actually just rolling it right on my solar plexus here, just right at the like, you know, below the chest line, rubbing it right there, or again, rubbing it on my palms to sort of draw it in, rub my hands together. I've also actually used this prosperity oil, I forgot to mention, to rub on my resin ankh that I got in my Witch's Moon box, because this has like Thoth oil in it, and it's also got Renanutet oil, both of which are Egyptian deity associated oils that I got in my Witch's Moon. And I really like that idea of continuing to charge that ankh that hangs on my wall as a way of drawing in more prosperity. So it's kind of like having a little space dedicated to prosperity and abundance in my sacred area, sacred space area. So really, really enjoying those. And then, as some of you know, if you were on the live unboxing of the February Witch's Moon, it was right after my dad had passed. It was really intense. I'd been having all of these synchronicities dealing with the goddess Yemaya. And then I opened the box and it was like a Yemaya themed box. And I know that there are multiple ways to say her name. The one I'm saying now is the one that I've heard the most from somebody that I respect. But, and I might even still be saying it wrong. So I'm still learning. But this came in my Witch's Moon. I have every intention of laminating this. I've actually picked up an inexpensive, not cheap I should say, an inexpensive laminating device from Amazon and some sleeves. So I'm going to laminate her, and then I can put her, hang her, or put her in a frame. I'm not sure yet, but this artwork came. And then a Yemaya themed oil came. And then the key feature in the box were these absolutely stunning shell wands. And this feels like, I can't even describe how this particular tool feels, how the synchronicities with Yemaya feel. All of it feels very momentous and important and timely and all of those things. So I'm filled with this deep respect for this connection with this particular goddess, and I'm continuing to work with her. But this just feels very connecting. While I was at Northwest Tarot Symposium, I also picked up a mermaid trinket box that's going to be going. So I'm going to be developing or building a Yemaya altar in my space specifically to dedicate to her, to be able to leave her offerings, to do that sort of thing. That's a work in progress. I'm taking my time. I don't want to rush or be impulsive because I really want everything I do, every choice I make around this particular connection to be very meaningful. But this will be living in that space and for you specifically when I'm sitting and doing meditation work to connect with her, or anything that I'm doing like that to honor her, I'll be using this tool. So this blew me away. If you were on that live, you saw it was like very emotional, it was very intense. Then the witch's moon popped on and like said, we're glad you like it, and I fell apart, and it was great. It was great. If you want a good, like, you know, look at me when I'm crying, go check that out. I'll put it in the cards. You can go have a good look at that. So that was my magical sort of highlights from February. And really that ties in with memories. Obviously the most memorable thing that happened to me this month was losing my dad. And there's a whole lot of complicated stuff mixed in there that I'm still working through and processing. My grieving process feels extremely personal and extremely unique, and unlike anything I've really experienced before, and really is the call I feel is to do that grieving in a very private way. So most of my work around that has been extremely private. There's been little bits I've talked about here on the channel, but I mean, as far as just ritual and the things I need to do to move forward, they all feel very personal, very private, and just for me. So that's what I'm doing where that's concerned. Let's talk about, oh, one more book that I wanted to mention actually. I know I already mentioned books, but I picked up this gem at a local, I think, Kohl's bookstore here in Coquitlam, BC. And this astrology book, so it's called Astrology, Using the Wisdom of the Stars in Your Everyday Life by Carol Taylor. Now, I also picked up another astrology book that is more of a, what I would say, a sit down and read kind of book maybe, or it's a little more in-depth, I think, but it's called The Stars Within You, and that one was recommended by Dustin at Modernmetaphysicsman. But I picked up this one as well, and what I love about this book, so it's definitely my favorites, is that it's very colorful. The pages, the sections in the book itself are kind of color-coded, so you can kind of see there's a lot of color throughout, like with tabs and things. But I feel like I can quickly turn to any sort of section on astrology and read about the planets that are associated with that thing. I can look up nodes, I can look up houses, I can look up rulership. There's lots of really pretty charts. So visually, this book has been my go-to when I'm, like when I sit down to watch Dustin's series, which, speaking of which, let's just bring that up now, because astrology themed stuff are actually my YouTube favorites this month. So there are 2 YouTube channels you need to check out if you are curious about starting to learn more about astrology, particularly, in one case, particularly if you already know about the tarot or you want to see how astrology and tarot work together. And in another case, if you just want to learn the bare bones of astrology and start to apply some of that stuff. So the bare bones is Dustin, Modern Metaphysics Man, is doing Sunday morning series. I forget what he's called it. Possibly Astrology Fundamentals, but don't quote me on that. I will link that down below. Either the first video, the playlist if he's got it in a playlist, or his channel, or some combination thereof. But I've really, really, really been enjoying that. Even when I can't catch them live, I've been enjoying watching them on replay. And one thing that Dustin is doing that is so, so helpful is he is writing accompanying blog posts to his videos, and those are usually actually up just before he goes live. So you can follow along with the video and the blog post, or you can watch the video and then read the blog post, or any combination. So the material is really easy to review, to sink in, to look at. The other astrology series that I'm currently loving is by Shadowmoon Tarot. Her channel is really new. This is one of the first things she's done on her channel, and she's doing an astrology and tarot series that is just phenomenal. So her first video was just going through all the planets, and I wrote copious notes, and it was amazing. And I've just been following the series through, and I've just been really enjoying that as well. So I will put links to that also down below, because you need to see that. If you happen to watch this video, by the way, when it first uploads, those links might not be there, but they will be there shortly thereafter. So definitely check back if you're interested in the links. But this is the book I've been pulling out to have beside me when I'm watching those videos, because I feel like I can very easily flip to a chart or a page on whatever it is that either one of those lovely people happen to be talking about, and it makes me feel like I can follow along better. That and the blog post by Dustin combined, great astrology stuff. And I think that lets me lead right into decks, and then I'll have a couple of other little things to talk about at the end. So, speaking of decks, no surprise, my Living Wheel astrology cards by Patrick Fogarty. This has been the other thing I've had out with me anytime I'm watching those videos. I'm a visual person, and I hesitated to buy this because I was like, I don't know how I'm going to use it. I don't even know astrology yet. But you guys, it's been really, really helpful to be able to just visually see cards for the moon phases or the planets. We've got Jupiter here. I find that it's helped me to sink into the information a lot better, to have those visual references. It was actually shortly after getting this deck and just playing with it a few times that I realized that I was starting to recognize the astrological symbols for the signs, almost like flashcards, just because I'd spent some time looking at these. This deck is beautifully produced. The cardstock is amazing. It just feels luxurious to play with and to hold. I still plan to lay out my birth chart with it and do some more fun things with that, but because of my sort of growing interest in astrology and starting to layer that into my work with the tarot, this just checks a lot of happy boxes for me. So this is definitely in my favorites for this month. I'm also enjoying occasionally pulling out the as above so below layout that is in the little pamphlet that comes with the book, where you basically lay out the sun and the sun sign, the sign that the sun is currently in, the moon, the sign that moon's currently in, the current season, etc. And you just kind of look at the little keywords that are in the pamphlet. There's like one keyword for each card in here. And you kind of think about the overall astrological energy. You can kind of apply it to your life, which I think is really cool, and it makes astrology feel accessible and real in a really simple way. So if you have been hesitating because you're like, I don't know how I'm going to use those, great study tool, great visual reference, and even if all you ever do is pull out the cards for what's happening in the sky right now, I feel like that's also just a really valuable thing to be able to do. So, recommend. Let's talk about decks. And since we're, oh, that was a deck. Let's talk about some more decks. Since we're talking about astrology, I'm going to go right into my Harry Potter tarot. This was of my favorites. Most are oracles, except for one, which is tarot. This is the tarot that made my favorites for the month because of the astrology. I was going to say astrology, but who doesn't want to see Dumbledore? We all want to see Dumbledore, right? As I talked about in my weekly deck review video, which I will try to remember to put in the cards or link below, in every minor arcana card you can find a planet and a sign. Usually up above somewhere is the planet and down below somewhere is the sign. So for example, in Hagrid's hut here for the 10 of wealth, so that's, I said 10 of wealth. This is the 10 of discs, which is the wealth card. You can see that we have Mercury in, I think that's Virgo. The only downside is that they're really tiny and you do have to really like kind of look to see them. But I liked that that also had me slow down a bit. What I geeked out on when I was working with this deck, truly, what I geeked out on was the astrology. I geeked out on the Harry Potter because it's Harry Potter and I love Harry Potter. And I loved the references in the cards. I'm not as keen on the chord associations, but I do get what the author was doing, or the artist was doing. This deck, in case you haven't seen me talk about it yet, is privately published by Eleanor Piper. I don't know how you say her name. She is the artist behind the New Era Tarot. And basically, if you go to her DeviantArt account, which is Alligator, I believe, and message her privately, you can purchase a copy of this from her, but it is not mass-produced for obvious reasons. So, there you go. Other favorites for the month. The Animalkin Oracle has been a joy to work with. I love this deck. This is definitely my #1 animal deck. I've talked about this deck a lot on my channel this last month, so you can find my walkthrough of this deck. I love my lady beetle or my ladybug. You can find my walkthrough and review. You can also find me talking about this in my weekly deck review video. I love the art, I love the color, I love the selection of animals. It just feels very balanced. I really enjoy everything that's in here. I feel like the art style matches with a lot of decks, which is nice when you work with tarot and oracle together the way that I usually do. So I just really, really enjoyed this. I will not hesitate to reach for this when I want to pull in some animal medicine or animal energy into my work or my practice in any way. Love, 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 love this deck. The other oracle deck that just knocked my socks off this month, there's two actually. For the one that probably knocked my socks off the most is the Hero's Journey Oracle by Kelly Sullivan Walden. These are the backs. You guys, the artwork is by Rasuli. If you see Rasuli's artwork, it's mind-blowing. Now, I should say that I have seen reference somewhere that some of this art does appear in another oracle deck that Rasuli did with somebody, I think. Like maybe there was some repeating images in Journey to Love, I want to say. I don't have any of the Rasuli decks because the other ones did not resonate with me. So this is the only deck I have in my collection that has Rasuli's art, so I don't have that conflict or that association. But if that is something that will bother you, and to be honest, if I'd had the other decks, that probably would have bothered me, then just know that going in. But this deck is beautiful. The keywords are all great. The messages are all great. It was really easy to work with and to read. Highly, highly recommend. And the very last one is the Oracle deck, rather, that is in my favorites this month, is the Healers of the Earth by Mandy Peterson. Pretty sure it's Mandy Peterson, but I don't have the guidebook with me. The artwork on this is soft. It's lovely. The deck is very, very balanced. You get a lot of different types of messages. I love that there is a key, sort of keyword, and then little keywords underneath that main message. So I don't need to rely on the guidebook. This is the matte borderless edition, which is amazing. I have a full walkthrough on my channel of this deck. And it's even edged in antique silver, but this was a joy to read with. I loved working with this deck, and I think it's definitely in my top 5 right now for oracles of all time. I really, really love it. So that and Hero's Journey both kind of blew me away for real. That is it for decks. The very last favorite I have to show you. So my the one big metaphysical store in our area is called Banyan Books. It's in downtown Vancouver. Well, not downtown, west end of Vancouver. If you're local, you know what that means. They have a once a year, like 20% off everything in the store sale. My sister and I went, and we each got a singing bowl. This was not in the plan for me. My sister had planned to get a singing bowl. I did not until I started playing with this bad boy. And this singing bowl is not one of the more decorative ones. In fact, it looks like it maybe has even been discolored a little bit by the sun. If you know anything about, I think it's copper, I'm so bad with metal. If you know anything about this material and how I can shine it up, I would love to know, because I don't want to put anything on it unless I know it's safe. But it's the sound, and I don't even think it'll pick up on camera. I'm going to bring it near the mic and see if I can actually get it to go so that you can hear it. But it's a really deep. I'm going to bring it in real close. I know you probably heard the like kind of vibrations when the mallet hit it, but it's a really deep, like low kind of root chakra kind of belly. It's just oomphy. I just love it. I love those deeper tones in singing bowls. And this mallet actually turned my other singing bowl, because it's got a suede side and then it's got your typical wood side as well. It does sound different with the wood side than the suede side. I don't like the rattle. So it's much higher when I use the wood one. The wood mallet is similar to one I have for my other singing bowl, which is over there right now. But when I use this side, the suede side, with my other singing bowl sounds completely different and really cool also. So the mallet is a favorite and the singing bowl is a favorite. But this was a really cool find for February, and I just love, 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 love it. So I am in just under 30 minutes, so I'm going to call it quits here and get this bad boy uploaded to YouTube. But as always, I always appreciate hearing what your guys' favorite stuff was for the month. Whether or not you have a channel, you are just as important a part of this community, and I really cannot say that enough. I always love hearing from you guys, no matter what. So definitely, I mean, provided you're nice, but you guys have always been nice, so I'm not worried. So with that said, definitely tell me some of your favorite things from this month, maybe magic or decks or favorite memories, anything like that. And I look forward to talking to you all again very soon. Remember to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Share, you know the drill. Talk to y'all later. Bye.